The morning sun cast long shadows across the steps of the downtown courthouse as Marcus Reed adjusted his tie and checked his briefcase one final time. At 35, Marcus had built a reputation as one of the city's most formidable defense attorneys, but today felt different. Today, he wasn't defending a client, he was prosecuting a cop. Inside courtroom 3B, the air crackled with tension thick enough to cut with a knife. Officer Jake Collins sat at the defendant's table, his jaw clenched tight, eyes burning with barely contained rage. The decorated 20-year veteran of the Metro Police Department wasn't used to being on this side of the law, and it showed in every rigid line of his body. Judge Helen Carter banged her gavel twice, calling the packed courtroom to order. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here today to determine the guilt or innocence of Officer Jake Collins on charges of evidence tampering, perjury, and violation of civil rights. Marcus rose from his seat, his voice steady and clear as crystal. Your Honor, the evidence will show that Officer Collins systematically planted drugs on innocent black citizens over a period of 3 years. 12 families destroyed. 12 lives shattered. All because of one man's twisted sense of justice. Collins leaned forward, whispering harshly to his lawyer, but his eyes never left Marcus. The hatred was palpable, radiating across the courtroom like heat from a furnace. Objection. Collins' attorney, David Miller, jumped to his feet. Counsel is making inflammatory statements without foundation. Sustained, Judge Carter replied. Mr. Reed, please stick to the facts. Marcus nodded respectfully. Of course, Your Honor. He turned to face the jury, 12 faces representing the community Collins had sworn to protect. The facts are simple. We have video evidence, witness testimony, and most damning of all, Officer Collins' own words caught on a wire recording. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Collins shot up from his chair, but Miller quickly pulled him back down. The officer's face had turned a dangerous shade of red, his hands trembling with fury. Furthermore, Marcus continued, his voice rising above the murmur, we have evidence that this corruption goes deeper than one rogue officer. The very system designed to protect us has been weaponized against our most vulnerable citizens. Collins' breathing grew heavy and labored. His right hand instinctively moved toward his service weapon, still holstered at his side despite being in court. The stage was set for an explosive confrontation. Marcus walked toward the evidence table, his footsteps echoing in the suddenly silent courtroom. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I present to you Exhibit A. He held up a small recording device, no bigger than a matchbox. This device captured Officer Collins in his own words, planning to plant cocaine on 18-year-old Tommy Washington. The recording crackled to life through the courtroom speakers. Collins' voice was unmistakable. Kid's got no priors, but he's got that look, you know? These people need to learn respect. I'll make sure he gets 5 to 10. Collins rocketed out of his chair like a man possessed. That's fake. You can't prove that's real. His voice cracked with desperation, spit flying from his lips. Officer Collins, please sit down, Judge Carter commanded, her gavel striking wood with authority, but Collins wasn't listening anymore. 20 years of unchecked power, 20 years of getting away with corruption, and now this black lawyer was tearing it all down piece by piece. His world was crumbling, and he could feel the walls closing in. You have no idea what you're dealing with, boy. Collins snarled, his mask of civility completely shattered. The racial slur hung in the air like poison gas. Marcus stood his ground, his voice calm but firm. Officer Collins, the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you try to bury it. That was the breaking point. Collins' hand moved to his holster with lightning speed. The metallic click of his service weapon clearing leather sent a shockwave through the courtroom. Screams erupted from the gallery as people dove for cover behind wooden benches. Nobody moves. Collins roared, his Glock 19 aimed directly at Marcus' chest. You think you can destroy my life? 20 years on the force. 20 years protecting this city. Marcus raised his hands slowly, his eyes never leaving Collins' face. Jake, this isn't the way. Put the gun down. Let's talk about this. Talk? Collins laughed, a sound devoid of any humor. You want to talk? I've heard enough talking from people like you. Judge Carter had ducked behind her bench, frantically pressing the panic button. Security. Security to courtroom 3B immediately. The heavy courtroom doors burst open as 3 armed bailiffs rushed in, their weapons drawn. Drop your weapon. Drop it now. Bailiff Rodriguez shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Collins swung his gun between Marcus and the approaching officers, his finger dancing dangerously close to the trigger. Sweat poured down his face, mixing with tears of rage and desperation. You don't understand. Collins screamed. These people, they're destroying everything. The order. The respect. Someone has to maintain control. Marcus took a small step forward, his voice steady despite the gun trained on him. Jake, look around you. Look at what you've become. This isn't justice. This is fear. The standoff stretched into what felt like hours but was only seconds. Collins' hand shook violently, his breath coming in ragged gasps as the weight of his actions finally began to sink in. The tense silence that followed, Marcus made a calculated move that would change everything. His hand slowly reached into his jacket pocket, causing Collins to tighten his grip on the weapon. Easy, Jake, Marcus said softly. I'm just reaching for something you need to hear. He pulled out a second recording device, this one smaller and more sophisticated. You see, Jake, I've been recording this entire trial. Including what just happened in the last 5 minutes. Collins' eyes widened in horror as the realization hit him like a sledgehammer. Marcus pressed play, and Collins' own voice filled the courtroom. These people need to learn respect. You think you can destroy my life? People like you, the racial hatred, the threats, the confession of planting evidence. It was all there, crystal clear and undeniable. No, no, no. Collins shook his head violently, the gun wavering in his trembling hands. You set me up. This whole thing was a trap. The only trap, Jake, was the one you built for yourself, Marcus replied calmly. Every lie you told, every innocent person you framed, every time you abused your badge, it all led to this moment. Bailiff Rodriguez took advantage of Collins' distraction, moving closer with careful precision. Sir, you're only making this worse for yourself. Put the weapon down. Collins' breathing became erratic, his face contorting with anguish. The weight of his crimes, the public humiliation, and the inevitable consequences crashed down on him all at once. I was just trying to clean up the streets, he whispered, his voice breaking. The department, we all knew what needed to be done. Captain Morrison, Lieutenant Hayes, they all signed off on it. The courtroom erupted in shocked gasps. Collins had just implicated his superiors in the corruption scheme. Marcus nodded grimly. Tell them about the quotas, Jake. Tell them about the bonuses for high arrest numbers in minority neighborhoods. Collins' resolve finally shattered completely. The gun slipped from his fingers, clattering to the floor as he collapsed into his chair. Tears streamed down his face as 20 years of built-up guilt and shame poured out. We had quotas, he sobbed. Arrest quotas. The captain said we needed to show results in the black neighborhoods. Said it would look good for federal funding. If we didn't have enough evidence, we made some. The truth was finally out. The systematic corruption, the institutional racism, the conspiracy that reached the highest levels of the police department, all of it exposed in one devastating moment. Bailiff Rodriguez quickly secured Collins' weapon while his partner placed handcuffs on the broken officer. Jake Collins, you're under arrest for assault with a deadly weapon, in addition to all previous charges. Judge Carter emerged from behind her bench, her voice steady despite the chaos. This court will recess while we process what has just occurred. However, based on the defendant's confession and threatening behavior, I'm prepared to render immediate judgment on the original charges. 3 weeks later, the same courtroom buzzed with a different energy entirely. Collins sat in shackles as Judge Carter read his sentence, 25 years in state prison without possibility of parole for 15 years. The gallery erupted in applause. Families who had lost loved ones to Collins' corruption embraced tearfully, finally seeing justice served. Outside the courthouse, Marcus stood before a crowd of reporters and community members. Today proves that truth and justice can prevail, even against a corrupt system. But our work isn't finished. Captain Morrison and Lieutenant Hayes will face their own trials next month. Young Tommy Washington, the teen Collins had framed, approached Marcus with his mother. "Thank you, Mr. Reed. You gave me my life back." Marcus smiled, placing a hand on the young man's shoulder. "Justice isn't a destination, Tommy. It's a journey we take together." As the sun set over the courthouse steps, a community began to heal, knowing that courage and determination could overcome even the deepest injustice.